Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to the Islamic Society Leading American Muslims, an organization that was established to conduct da'wah, which means inviting people to learn about the true and peaceful message of Islam, and then to educate and empower those that come this way. So just so that you know, we have new folk with us today. We have a culture here and a policy of no condemnation, no criticism, no castigation, and no indictment. If somebody does that to you, let me know. I want to address it. We want to have a safe place, a nurturing place for people to grow wherever they are in their faith journey. And we have no expectations of you except love. That's the only expectation we have, is that you'll love each other and not judge each other. So, strange announcement, but the Dean of Religious Life is accepting toiletries, and that would mean feminine products as well, for impoverished students here at Rollins. So with very wealthy schools, there are certain requirements that folks can get into that actually live below the poverty level, which is very strange dynamic. But it is the case, so we will be having a basket. I guess next week it'll be in the room if you'd like to bring and donate some feminine products. Any kind of toiletries, but it will be used for women, so I'll put that out there. I received a message from Graham and Fazia this morning. They are still under the weather. They actually were on the way to class, and they felt that their colds were too contagious still, that they did not want to spread it with the rest of us. So they turned around and went back home. So please be making dua for them. And then I'd like to recognize someone who's with us for the first time today. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure.
Please. Thank you.
My name is I.S.L.A.M. What else should I say about myself?
Anything that you'd like to.
Okay, so I've recently been on a journey with Islam. I was raised Muslim, but I didn't really know much about the religion. I was searching for God, and I strayed away from Islam into Christianity. I converted to Christianity for a few months, and then things weren't sitting right with me, so I ended up doing my own research, and I found Islam again, alhamdulillah. And so I'm excited to get to know all of you.
Good. Welcome to our family, and we hope that this will be the first of many times that you'll be with us. Yeah, a vital part of our family, inshallah. I would also be remiss if I did not remind you that today is the 3rd of Rajab, and that this is one of the sacred months, one of the very special gifts from Allah, where we are not to be fighting. So there's no fighting in the holy precincts, and therefore if we want to emulate the essence of this principle, we will make sure that we are not fighting. So, and we will not wrong ourselves, and this comes from Surah Tawbah, Surah 9, verse 36. Do not wrong yourself therein. So how do we wrong ourselves? We wrong ourselves when we don't pray. We wrong ourselves when we are not nice to people. We wrong ourselves anytime we violate a command of Allah, and we wrong ourselves anytime we do something that's prohibited, and anytime we're supposed to do something and don't do it. So I'm just trying to make sure I get the omissions and the commissions in there. So please please remind yourself every morning that this is the month of Rajab. It's a sacred month. I want to sanctify it. I want to set it apart and be really devoted to Allah. Also, I'd be remiss if I did not remind you that that means that we are 57 days away from Ramadan. So I would encourage the men and the women and the children, whoever organizes food and things like that for the month of Ramadan, that you begin to organize, that you begin to plan, that you clean out your freezer and you make space for what you need, and you actually think ahead. What is it going to be like for me this year? How am I going to need to adjust? Because as we know, the month of Rajab is the month of weeding out the soul. The month of Sha'ban is the month of rain, and the month of Ramadan is the month of harvest. Also, running late on Muslim Standard Time is my daughter Camila, who had her 30th birthday yesterday, and I was very touched. All of us are on a spiritual journey, and so she sent me a voicemail yesterday, and she said, pardon me? Yes, you can. And she said to me, Daddy, because I had reached out to her early in the morning to be the first one, and she said, I memorized the surah for my birthday. So, alhamdulillah. So, Mason's going to play it for us.
I wanted to learn a new surah for my 30th birthday. Alhamdulillah. I learned Surah Al-Shams. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. والشمس وضحاها والقمر إذا تلاها والنهار إذا جلاها والليل إذا يغشاها والسماء وما بناها والأرض وما طحاها ونفس وما سواها فألهمها فجورها وتقواها قد أفلح من زكاها وقد خاب من دساها كذبت ثمود بدعواها فكذبهم رسول الله نبأ الله وسقياها فعقروها فدمدم عليهم ربهم بذنبهم فسواها ولا يخاف عقباها صدق الله العظيم.
Yeah, mashallah. So, you're taking my words away from me, Nere. I'm going to make you do the announcements if you keep that.
You sing just as well? No, not as well as
Yeah. Yeah. So I was going to say this is the beauty of the Islamic family, how we are learning from each other and we are empowering each other and supporting each other and enriching each other. So thank you, Lace. And of course, I'm prejudiced because that's my girl. So, in alhamdulillah ta'ala, nahmaduhu wa nasta'inuhu wa nastaghfiruh. ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا ومن يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده رسوله. Indeed, all praise is due to Allah. We praise Allah. We seek refuge with Allah from the evil in our soul and from our sinful deeds. Those who are guided by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, no one can misguide them. Those who are not guided by Allah, there is no guide for them. I bear witness that there is no God, there is no deity. Worthy of worship except Allah, and that Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is his servant and messenger. O you who believe, revere Allah as Allah alone should be revered, and die not, except in submission to Allah. So today we will begin our countdown, our journey in preparation for Ramadan. And so I pray that Allah will open our spiritual ears, our spiritual eyes, that He will prepare our hearts to receive, that He will prepare our hearts to enter into Ramadan according to the conditions that were met by our messenger, Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and those nearest to him. So first, I want to look today at Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's ultimate purpose for us. So we see in Surah 51 and verse 56, I have created jinns and mankind for the one ultimate purpose, that they fulfill ibadah, worship to me. So please keep in mind the word ibadah and the word worship. Please keep that in mind. It's sort of bold, italicized, and underlined that idea. This is the unequivocal purpose of human beings on this earth, is to serve Allah, to worship Allah. Philosophers throughout their lives and throughout millennia have been trying to answer the question, why are we here? So often I meet people that are not Muslims, usually, and they say, why am I here? I don't get it. I don't understand what it's all about. I don't see the purpose. What is the purpose of all this? So this question that has been asked for thousands and thousands of years is explained in one verse in the Holy Quran. That the reason you're here is to worship Allah. That is the reason you're here. Allah saved humanity from the thousands of years of investigative research and answered these questions. You and I are here to fulfill worship to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is the most important thing to reflect on as we approach and practice the holy month of Ramadan. What is ibudiyah? What is worship? Ibudiyah. What is worship? And worship is when I live in this universe and my objectives and my intentions are in accordance with the intent of the Creator. So as we are going to be moving into this holy month, and we are in a sacred month, I would encourage you to have a mantra of thought. And that is, are my intentions in accordance with the intent of the one who created me? Are my intentions in accord with the one that created me, with the one that owns me, with the one that maintains me, with the one that sustains me? When the intent of the created is subservient to the intent of the Creator, that is how I attain worship. Every aspect of our life, every second of our life is to be designed by us individually so that the intentions behind our actions, deeds, and words, and most importantly, our heart, are in accordance with the intentions of the Creator of my heart, soul, mind, and body. How often do we forget Allah? We are in the world, operating in the world, and we get caught up in that. And we have moments in time when not only do we forget Allah, but that we remember Allah, and then we go straight back to the other memories. Example, I'm sitting in front of television. The self-reproaching soul says to me, reminds me, it's time to pray. And I say, oh no, I'll watch this program and then I will pray. So then all of that time that lapses, I'm not remembering Allah. And if I do not remember Allah, Allah will not remember me, and I cannot say that I'm worshiping. The consequences of that is that I, as a human, shall attain peace inside me and actualize, materialize, and realize peace outside of me. When I am fulfilling the commands of my Creator, I will find myself at peace. The moment that you find yourself at dis-ease, look at what you're doing. Look at where you are. Look at who you are with. And look at what you are doing. To whatever degree I submit, surrender, consent, or commit to the intent of my Lord, my Creator, my Rabb, I will be able to actualize that level of peace outside of me to that same degree or greater. When we go to another human being, let us remember, let us ponder, let us reflect that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent the messenger of Allah Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam as a mercy to all mankind. So that no matter what situation we are in, no matter how angry we might be, no matter how frustrated we might be, that we will want to approach whatever we are approaching in a manner of mercy. That we want to be merciful to other people as our messenger was, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. We also know that the messenger of Allah, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, said, a Muslim is one in whom you are safe from his or her tongue and hands. A mu'min is one in whom you can entrust your life and property. So let us make sure that as we are entering to this time, that every single person we come in contact with, we will be worshiping, and therefore they will receive nothing from us but mercy and compassion. And we, in that moment, with that intention, will actually be worshiping. Allah in the Quran is described as I.S.L.A.M, the peace. And the Messenger of Allah, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, described Allah as the source of peace. Since Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the peace, I.S.L.A.M, and the only source of peace, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala invites us to the home of peace, Dar al-Salam. If I am in Dar al-Salam, how could I be anything else except peaceful? How could I truly be anything else except merciful? But the moment that I step out of the house of peace, then peace will not be alive within inside of me. And the moment I step outside of the house of peace, am I serving I.S.L.A.M or am I serving something else, the opposite thereof? I want to be at peace inside of me first, and have the consequence of that peace outside of me. Where should I go? I have to go to Allah. I have to connect myself consistently in the divine presence of Allah. And how do I do that? I make dhikr. I begin whatever I'm doing with Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. I remember that it is a sacred month. I remember that I am intentionally preparing for the month of Ramadan. I should go to the source of all peace, Allah. If I'm in a desert and I need to drink water and I know there is a well somewhere, a source, and I want to quench my thirst, I will have to go to that well. If I stay away from the source of water, I will never be able to quench my thirst, and I will never be able to give water to someone else from that source of water. The nearer I am to the source of water, the greater the chance of quenching my thirst, and the greater the possibility is that I can give water to others. Insha'Allah, as we are preparing, we will begin to quench our spiritual thirst. We will begin to fill our hearts with love and remembrance of Allah, with the mercy that Muhammad ﷺ so beautifully displayed. That Ramadan, in essence, will begin for us now. If I stay away from the source of peace, I will not drink from the source of peace, I won't have peace, and I will be unable to give peace to others. Islam comes from the root Sin, Lam, Mim, from which we get Salam, peace. When we put mu in front of a verb in the Arabic language, it conjugates it to a noun. So a Muslim is a doer of peace. And as we are in this sacred month and we are preparing for the holy month of Ramadan, let us consistently be doing every single moment of our life. Let us be, let us materialize, let us actualize being the doer of peace. The nearer I am to it, the more I have of it. Being near to the source of peace, Allah, is not a physical nearness, Unlike the analogy of the well, it is a nearness with my heart. And of course, I don't mean the physical piece of flesh called the heart. I mean the inner characteristic and quality that is somehow connected to the physical heart, but is not itself the physical heart. So today, when I made the dua, I didn't say, "Oh Allah, open these ears on my head." I didn't say, "Open the eyes on my head." I said, "Ya Rabb, Ya Lord, open the eyes of my heart and the ears of my heart." And this is the heart that I'm preferring to. Nearness to Allah is achieved by that innermost feeding, immersion, and connectedness with Allah with our spiritual heart. And this is something that you have to experience. It is not something I can describe to you. I cannot describe to you that why I stand here and when I talk about Allah, my heart is so moved that it takes control of my eyes. I cannot explain that to you. But I can tell you that if you surrender your heart, you will have that connection. Assalamu alaikum, habibi. MashaAllah. It is this experience that stimulates the deepest part of your soul and causes tears to flood when you think of the source of peace. Oftentimes in my work as a therapist, I have people examining their thinking. And I call it stinking thinking. So for people that think badly of themselves, "Oh, I'm such a horrible person. Oh, I'm this." And it's stinking thinking. Because they're not thinking the way Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala thinks of them. Imagine that the creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will say, "I'm horrible. I'm not worth anything." Allah found you worthy and He chose a soul out of the soul world. And He placed that soul in your mother's womb. And that soul has a divine purpose. So it is this experience that stimulates the deepest part of your soul and causes tears to flood when you think of the source of peace. The heart that I'm speaking about is not the four-chamber one. For us to attain that nearness to the source of peace, Allah, He required and taught that we basically do two things. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala describes and summarizes in one way the mission of Rasulullah ﷺ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent amongst the unlettered people a messenger from among themselves in order to rehearse for them the signs, the ayat, what is meaning the verses of the Quran, and to cleanse and purify them, and to impart upon them the knowledge of the book and of wisdom. Insha'Allah, Allah will make it that each one of us in this room will make it the mission to do these four things in our life. That we will rehearse, we will practice it over and over and over again, the ayat of Allah. That they will be alive in our heart, and that we will hear them without even saying them. They will come to us in a time of need, that those ayat will be alive in our heart. And to cleanse and purify them. May Allah make it so that each one of us endeavor to help cleanse and purify our brother and sister on our right and our brother and sister on our left. And to impart upon them the knowledge of the book. Everything that you know, you are to teach it. Whatever you know, you might not say, "I don't know much, I just know Surah Al-Fatiha." Teach Surah Al-Fatiha. Teach the meaning of that opening, because that opening will open the door to the source of peace. All praise is due to Allah, the Lord of all the worlds, who is most merciful, most compassionate. The only do we worship, the only do we worship, and the only do we ask for help. Show us the straight way, the way of those who have earned your favor, and not the paths of those who have earned your wrath or have gone astray. So impart to them the knowledge of the book and of wisdom. So for those of us who've been doing this for a while, we can share with them the hikmah in this. We can share with them what happened in our life because we followed the signs. We followed the ayat. Within that purpose of worship, the means is to attainment of knowledge and purification of the inner self. And in order to purify your inner self, you must face yourself. You must face the Jamarat. You must annihilate the self. You must stone those things inside of you that are not like the Quran and the Sunnah. And that requires an every single moment by moment action of worship. If I'm worshiping, I will be aware, oh, this thought that I have, A'udhu billahi minash shaitani rajim, Ya Allah, I seek refuge with you. When we do those two things, then we will begin to undertake the journey of nearness to Allah. If I don't make myself near the well and I am distant and detached from Allah, I will not ever experience this nearness to Allah whereby my heart is stimulated by that. If I come and go, am I coming more than I'm going? Or am I going more than I'm coming toward Allah? So I pray that all of us are on the journey of nearness, not the journey of mediocrity. You can't have hikmah, wisdom, and mediocrity together. It doesn't work. The divine teaching in the Arabic language is defined as the trodden path to the source of water. And of course, I don't mean physical water. I mean the water of life. This nearness to Allah is the key to truly living. Because there are people that have biological life, but they are dead. They cannot do anything, but their heart, that physical heart, is beating. To have knowledge and to have hikmah, to have wisdom, means that I am near to Allah and that I am listening to the ayat and the signs of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That I am imparting them to others. And when I impart them to others, I too am connected to that. So it's like a BOGO. It's like I give one and I get one. It symbolizes and exemplifies this path of nearness to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This journey of the heart along the footsteps of Muhammad ﷺ, whose heart was nearest to the heart of Allah. If we say that we want to be like the messenger of Allah, Muhammad ﷺ, then that means, if we are congruent, that we want our heart to be nearest the heart of Allah. And I pray, I beg, I beseech, I implore Allah, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will move our hearts and help us to see this, to materialize this, and to realize this. The day that we are the nearest to the heart of Allah, people will come to Islam in droves. We will not have room for them. But the day that you do this, your life will change. You will get up with a purpose every morning of your life. You have the purpose. Some people just don't know where. They haven't seen the sign again. They forget the sign in front of them occasionally. So where does fasting come into this? Our nafs, our inner self, and our mind is subjected to challenges and trials to undertake the road and a path that is not necessarily a path of inner peace and nearness to Allah. When you wake up in the morning at daylight saving time and you can't find the snooze, it was there last night. The path begins a little rocky. And then you get up and guess what? Somebody took the last coffee last night and I could not have my morning coffee. And then I get in the car and perhaps I don't have enough gas to get to class and I have to stop and get gas. And then I'm late for class. And I'm sound like a rapper here, not intentionally. The struggle is there. But if in that struggle I recognize that I can be in the divine presence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it will cease to be a struggle and it will be an opportunity for me to be in the presence of the divine. The attainment of happiness in this world and in the hereafter is dependent upon nearness to Allah and the manifestation and realization of peace that comes with that. Do we get angry sometime? I think so. Do we get afraid sometime? Oh, I'm afraid if I tell my boss I want to pray, he or she will fire me. Sometimes do we hate? Do we feel selfish sometimes? Do we feel arrogant sometimes? Do we feel prejudiced sometimes? These are the inner ailments within us. And of course the list goes on that prevents us from attaining inner peace and from us being near to the source of peace, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So my prayer is that if you see these things alive inside of you, that you ask Allah to help you empty yourself of those things. Because we are entering into, we're 57 days plus or minus a day from the month of abstinence, from the month of restraint, where I want to restrain that anger. I want to restrain being afraid, being cowardice in my path, where I want to restrain feeling hate. I want to restrain feeling arrogant and haughty and proud. I want to restrain being selfish. I want to restrain prejudice. I want to restrain from hurting someone with my mouth, from hurting with someone with my hand. And as I am restraining, I am attaining. As I am restraining, I am attaining closeness to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When I don't have peace inside of me, I cannot give peace outside of me. And I find that it is amazing at the triviality of things that make us angry, the triviality of things that take our peace away. When we actually sit down and reflect and ponder on that thing which we allowed to mess up a minute, mess up an hour, mess up 2 hours, mess up a half a day. And we look at it in comparison to our trodden path to Allah, it is nothing. It is insignificant. Is my soul worth taking that kind of jeopardy? That I'm going to spend a day angry. I'm going to spend a half a day angry. I'm going to spend an hour angry. Okay, I'm going to be angry for an hour. Don't mess with me. I just won't talk to anybody right now. I'll let you know when I'm ready to talk. Is it, come on, where's the peace? Where is Allah in that? Where is the mercy even to yourself in that? He or she who does not have something cannot give of it. So when you meet that person and they say, I'm empty, I just have nothing. I'm numb, I just don't have anything to give, then they can't give it. And that's why we have to be like the messenger. We have to show them the ayat, show them the signs, help them purify themselves in a loving manner. My beloved brother and my beloved sister, pray that you will get to the space that you can give permission to your brother and sister. If you see anything in my life that is contrary to the Quran and the Sunnah, I ask you to, with beautiful words and eloquent speech, let me know. Not in a castigating, not in a condemning, not in a critical way, but in a way of mercy. In Islam, we like to speak of freedom from self, not freedom of the self. So you hear a lot of people saying, I can't wait to leave home. I'm going to have the freedom to do just exactly like I want to do. I'm sure nobody in this room ever said that. But we want the freedom to obey the nafs. We want the freedom to do exactly what the shaitan wants us to do. And some people believe that's the meaning of freedom. They might not tell you the latter part, but if we look at what they say and what they do, we will get an ayat in the context of a sign that that's what that person wants. I want to serve myself. If it smells good, I want to smell it. And if it tastes good, I want to eat it. And if it looks good, I want to look at it. So we need to be free from that self. We need to be free from the nafs. To be truly liberated, to be truly free, is to be free from the yokes and the chains of the self. And that is what freedom is. You see, when the self says, oh, well, nobody will know. You know, I think I'll have a little drink here. And I'm talking of the alcoholic nature. I'll have a little of this. Nobody will know. That means I'm unconscious. I have forgotten that the Creator is watching me. I have left Allah. I'm not remembering Allah. I'm not looking at the signs. Oh, I think it's okay. I think I want to have a boyfriend like all the other Americans. After all, that's normal. And we will convince our nafs. We will create a scripture for our nafs that comes from ourselves, which is shirk. We will justify and rationalize so that we can serve the self. And then we think we're liberated. And for a moment, when you're in the midst of that haram, which you rarely hear me say, you think you're deluded by the shaitan to believe that you're liberated. I get to do what I want to do. And then the next morning, the old guilt arrives. And you'll say, oh, I knew I shouldn't have done that. The self-approaching soul spoke to me, but I pushed it away. I didn't want to look at the signs. I didn't want to purify myself. I didn't want to gain nearness to Allah. I wanted to gain nearness to what I wanted. In terms of knowledge, would you be freer to be intellectually more knowledgeable of or about the source of knowledge, or to be less knowledgeable of or about the source of knowledge? Which one makes you more free? And I'll give you the answer, of course. Knowledge liberates and frees one. If I have a knowledge of what Allah wants from me and doesn't want from me, and I obey that, I will find peace. I won't have those moments of dis-ease and then moments of good. I will be in the moments of good because I'm following the ayat, the signs of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Surah Az-Zumar, are those who know equal to those who do not know? Are those who know equal to those who do not know? We know that indulging the self and serving the freedom of the self, the will, those excitatory states, those desires, those passions that we have. Without proper restraints and control, we will be disengaged from that freedom of exalted knowledge. It's not knowing the truth that's making you free. It's implementing the truth. I might know that the truth up here, and I can even recite it, you shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free. I would argue with that translation and say that the implementation of the truth is what will make you free. If we are busy with our love for eating and our love for different kinds of food and different qualities and quantities of food, I live to go to Ruth's Chris. I live to go to Fleming's. I just can't wait to get to go here again. And I can't wait to go there. And I can't wait to do this. And I can't wait to do... How often do we say, I can't wait to pray? I can't wait to be near to Allah. I can't wait to observe that ayat. I can't wait to purify myself. I can't wait to extend mercy to someone as the Messenger of Allah ﷺ did. And if we are busy with our love for eating and our love for different kinds of food and different quantities and qualities of food, and if that's what we want to do most of the time, will we be able to be the student or athlete exemplar? And so I don't have my star basketball player here. She could probably tell us that you don't want to eat a whole lot of food before you play a ball game. Was that right, sister? You don't know, okay. Alhamdulillah. So I'll ask those people that are sports people. My wife, I should always look to her when I'm asking about sports. Who wants to go on the tennis court after you've eaten a porterhouse steak with a big baked potato? And of course you got to have a salad with it, right? No. Think about it. As you are moving into Ramadan, Allah is going to give you the opportunity to listen to 1/30th of the Quran every night. He's going to display all of those ayat in 1/30th of the Quran. Do you want as a student to go look at those signs with a third for food and a third for water and a third for air? Or do you want to be so full that when you go into ruku, you say, Allahu Akbar, Sami Allahu liman hamida, Rabbana wa lakal hamd, Allahu Akbar. And you can hardly get up and down because you have forgotten that this is the month of abstinence, not the month of indulgence. Won't this make us lazy and maybe make us want to sleep more than think or work out? When we eat more, it engages us in other feelings. It fuels and gives us energy for other passions other than nearness to Allah. And I often remember the days when I moved in different circles, when I would be sitting at the table in very fancy restaurants on Sunset Boulevard in California. And the people will just be, the more they ate, the more I was aware that they were more full of craziness. As if the more they ate, the more proud they got, the more arrogant they got, and they bragged more. And then, of course, then they will have a cigar, and then they will have this. And I don't know if you ever noticed this before, but it was what I saw. And I found it very, very upsetting. Eating too much disengages us intellectually. If you're going to take a major exam, do you want to go to an all-you-can-eat buffet before you sit for a 4 or 6 hour state exam? I don't know. Let me know after class if I'm wrong. Excessive focus on food takes us away from the remembrance of the source of peace. Hungry people are often irritable people who need to serve the desires of their stomach. So what will happen is the call to prayer will be made, but the call of the nafs to my stomach will be calling. Which call will we listen to? Which sign, which ayat will we listen to? May Allah make us to be among those people that the sweetest words we could ever hear would be the adhan. Because that is the call that liberated us. That is the call that in 1980 liberated me. That is the call that changed my life. Come to success, come to success, come to pray, come to pray. Allah is the greatest, Allah is the greatest. There is no God but God. If you focus on an insatiable desire for fun, your nafs, yourself, will want the freedom to just be a couch potato. Man, I'm just chilling. I'm all taking care of myself. I'm just chilling. But I didn't think about looking at the Quran. I didn't think about doing any dhikr while I'm chilling. I didn't think about anything about any mercy or anybody else as far as that's concerned. I'm just all about doing for me. So to be a couch potato, to surf the television or the internet and indulge in all types of entertainment and fun, browsing and surfing. And getting caught up by the advertisements that want us to buy something, and then we feed ourselves some more. Oh, I really do need that. Oh, yeah, I can't live without that, actually. I know I have to have it. And then I'm worshiping myself. If you keep doing that, would it engage you intellectually to be an A student in Islam? I contend, and may Allah forgive me if I am wrong, that the more devoted I am to myself, the less devoted I will be to my Lord. Fasting, as prescribed by Allah, intends to liberate us. To liberate us from all of those things that call on us. And what do we know? That the devil is in chains. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us this awesome period of time where if for a month we do anything wrong, we cannot blame shaitan. All the rest of the time we can say, well, you know, astaghfirullah, the shaitan whispered in my ear and I listened. But you can't say that in the month of Ramadan. This is a gift. It's like an experiment that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us. If something shows up in the month of Ramadan that is in accordance with the Quran and the Sunnah, it means that my nafs are alive and I need to annihilate that. Isn't that beautiful? We get people paid to go to boot camps. We get a 30-day time where there's no shaitan. That I can examine myself, the ayat, the signs, and I can change that which is not in alignment and harmony with law by abstinence and restraint. Every day when I am eating and drinking and focusing on materialistic things, it is easy for me to be disengaged from Allah's love, mercy, and compassion upon us, and in denial of those addictions to food and drink and entertainment and other passions, to the point that I fail to realize that there is life beyond these things. There is another dimension, the spiritual dimension. There is joy, pleasure, and happiness in a source that is not physical and materialistic like food, drinks, and entertainment that delude us to believe that they are the means and ways to pleasure and happiness. This is what we want to be saying. I find my greatest pleasure in worship. I find my greatest pleasure in remembering Allah. I find my greatest pleasure in extending mercy. I find my greatest pleasure in being compassionate. I find my greatest pleasure in obedience to Allah. I find my greatest pleasure in avoiding the things which Allah has prohibited. Allah does that for us from His compassion, and we sacrifice passions for the 5 daily prayers and fasting in Ramadan. At least 5 times a day we must interrupt what we are doing. And what we are doing is usually mundane and temporal to train us to realize that we must break from these things so that we don't become dependent, addicted, and a prisoner of what we do daily and our desires. We break from the daily mundane so that our inner self connects with the source of peace, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and does not get used to being in a state of focus on the material, mundane, and worldly things. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in His mercy gave us prayer and fasting to break us from self-addictions so that we realize that there is something else that is greater than I. And we don't continue to be consumed with our compulsions, whims, desires, and impulses. It's very interesting that oftentimes, maybe not often, maybe that's an exaggeration, but now and then, I will say to my students, let's just have 1 minute or 2 minutes of silence. Let's deny the self from talking. And people come and say to me, Imam Sykes, it almost drove me crazy. How do you do it? How can you not talk for 2 minutes? And I want to just say to you, say this with so much love. If you cannot control yourself to be quiet for 2 minutes, how will you control your nafs? The world and our desires, if they are not drawing me closer to the source of peace, are detrimental to my eternal soul. Let me say that again. The world and our desires, if they are not drawing me closer to the source of peace, are detrimental to my eternal soul. That is how our heart dies. And that is how we develop more and more inner ailments. More greed, more arrogance, more pride, more prejudice, and the list goes on. It's amazing if we look in our families and we say to someone, it's time to pray. Can't you see I'm watching television? Oh, there's no arrogance or pride there, is there? Allah gives us respite, fasting at least once during the year for 1 month, in addition to the highly recommended days for fasting like Mondays and Thursdays, and the 3 days in the middle of the month, and the month of I.S.L.A.M and the first 6 days of Shawwal, are for us an opportunity to liberate our lower self from the attachments and addictions that we have developed for other created things. Everyone here knows that we are not only a physical being. Many of us go to sleep and travel in our dreams. We travel to the past and the future in our dreams. This is not the characteristic of a physical dimension. We are more than just that. We feel physical pain in one dimension and emotional pain in another. And I know many of us today are in pain about something. And I would say, take your pain and turn it into purpose. I would say, Allah, here's my pain. Give me the ayat. Give me the signs on how to deal with that pain, so that I can purify myself from these horrible feelings I'm feeling. We feel joy. Is that 4-dimensional? Is it joy from the spiritual? Is it just joy because I went to Ruth's Chris? Well, somebody flirted with me. Somebody pursued me. Or is it joy because I am connected to the divine? I am praying. I am making dhikr. I am fasting. I am annihilating myself. How dare human beings say to themselves or impose on others philosophies of life that are utterly materialistic and humanistic? So we know that may Allah help me. When I left Christianity in my travels toward Islam, I became a humanist teacher. And I was working from the platform, helping people self-realize. Listen to that. Self-realize. Realize what they want. And one day my teacher said to me, when are you going to acknowledge that you are God? Yeah, you heard it right. Because humanists believe that you are the God of your experience. You are the master of your destiny, the captain of your ship, and therefore there's no room for any other captain. And then I had to start rethinking. Yes, I've left Christianity, and where am I? All of a sudden I've got somebody telling me, when are you going to declare that you're God? And of course I left humanism. Educational institutions focus on those philosophies about eating and sleeping and drinking and copulating and playing, and promote certain philosophies about them as truth. So you will have people at the academic levels of undergraduate and graduate school teaching people that they should engage in haram activities, reinforcing that you need to find yourself. We are not just stones or atoms of matter. It is normal that we know that we need things that don't have anything to do with eating, drinking, copulating, and sleeping all the time. The seen material realm. How can I forget these things and nourish the things outside of the material realm? The things I am talking about are not nourished by eating, sleeping, drinking, copulating, and playing. I must find out, if I don't know, how to develop the soul and form it in accordance with what it is meant to be, what it was made for, and imbue it with consciousness of God. And this comes from Surah 91, Surah I.S.L.A.M. May Allah forgive me, I believe it's verses 7 through 10. Write it down. I would encourage you to read this verse every day from now until the end of Ramadan. Listen to this beautiful Surah I.S.L.A.M, the sun, which is chapter 91, verses 7 through 10. Look at the beauty of this. Yes, it's the verse that we heard Camila recite earlier. Listen to this beautiful verse. Consider, ponder, reflect this self, this human self or personality, and how it is formed in accordance with what it is meant to be, what it is made for. Well, we learned that this morning. What is it made for? To worship Allah, to do worship. And how it is imbued with moral failings, the nafs, as well as with consciousness of God, the ruh. To a happy state shall indeed attain he or she who causes this self to grow, who purifies this self to grow in purity, and truly lost is he or she who buries it in darkness. When you bury those ayat, those signs, oh no, I'm in denial. They're not. It doesn't really mean that. I know the Quran says this, but no. I want to read another translation. It's the way Yusuf Ali translates it. I think it's so apropos to this specific time that we're in this time of preparing for the holy month of Ramadan. Look at this. By the soul and the proportion and order given to it. When I am purifying myself, I am giving order to my soul. By the soul and the proportion and order, I'm putting things in order. There's some things out of order. And I'm annihilating them, I'm getting rid of them, and I am putting the things in order that are from my ruh, from the signs, from the ayat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. By the soul and the proportion and order given to it, and its enlightenment. Well, where does enlightenment come from? The ayat. As to its rights and wrongs. So I'm learning about myself. To know myself is to know Allah. What is it? How do I wrong myself, and how do I right myself? Truly he or she succeeds that purifies it, and he or she fails that corrupts it. And I'm trying to decide, I think we should stop here, inshallah. So some may soon will you remember that I will start on slide 37 next week, inshallah. What I want to do is I pray that you will forgive me if I offended you in any way. I know that some of this matter is very touchy and that nobody wants to be told to abstain from the things that they have passions for. But because I love you and I want for you what I have for myself, I have to tell you. I don't have a choice in that. If I were to not tell you, I would be plugged into my nafs. And I would be wanting to be approved by you. My ego would want your acceptance and your approval. So I ask you to accept what I give you with love. That you would accept what I'm giving you, knowing that my intention is to help you purify yourself, to help you practice and to have knowledge and wisdom, inshallah. So I'm going to move on to the pondering and reflecting questions of today.